The webinar is now broadcasting.
Right, to all attendees.
And then at about 5:45, I'm going to have to excuse myself. Okay.
No problem.
Lynn,
All right.
from your standpoint?
So I see that we have a couple attendees so far and the 5 panelists, and we'll get going. So for those of you that are out there in the audience, we'll get going in about 2 minutes. We'll let other people join in. I see a number of people coming in.
Can you see our images? Oh.
All right, I see people coming in. We'll get going in about 2 more minutes.
I feel like somebody needs a little comedy act or something to entertain everybody at the start.
Well, it's some
I could tell you a joke if you want my like my priest. My joke with a congressman. But,
After being on Zoom for 100 days now, or Teams, I think that this is a little different because we can only go one way, except for except for those of us that are panelists. So. All right, well, I think we will get going. I see that we have a number of attendees here. And my name is Alicia Dupies, and I'll let the rest of the team introduce themselves in just a minute. But I just first wanted to go through some housekeeping items. We're thrilled to have this neighborhood meeting in a very virtual sense. Obviously, COVID and social distancing and maximum room capacity have forced us to go the high-tech route here. We will be using the chat feature tonight. So those of you unfamiliar with Zoom, either at the very top of your screen or the very bottom of your screen will be something where you can see, you can mute yourself. You're actually automatically muted. I can mute some of our panelists if I feel that that's necessary. I don't think I will. But then, there is a chat feature. And so if there are any questions that you have along the way, feel free to put those in and we'll do our best to answer them at the end. But if we're not able to do it tonight in this forum, we're definitely going to follow up with an FAQ and some questions afterwards. Other technical items, we are going to record this. This is being recorded and we will post it to our website later this week. And I think that is it. I think I'll turn it over, Amy, to you real quick to kind of do an orientation of what we're going to get through, and then you can turn it over to Jim to talk a little bit about who we are.
Okay, well, thank you, Alicia. My name is Amy Shaneman from Capri Senior Communities, and the topics that we're going to be covering tonight are an introduction of all of our panelists and the team players that are here with you tonight and a part of our project, and then talk about how we could continue. We're going to go through project schedule and project overview, along with how we can stay in touch. So, you know, as Alicia mentioned, this is not our traditional format for doing a construction kickoff. Typically, we have a town hall meeting. We've already had 2 of those to date. So maybe some of the panelists, or I'm sorry, maybe the attendees that are here tonight have been or participated in those town hall meetings previously. Otherwise, if you're new to our project or this construction kickoff because it involves you in a different way, we may cover some of that same material. So we invited a lot of the local businesses and tenants in the commercial properties adjacent to and around the area. We invited Alderman Skidmore to this presentation. He may have another obligation now. I know he does have a common council tonight, but he was hoping to jump on earlier in the call, so he may be on, as well as the Tamarack residents and some other residential neighbors. So that's sort of our audience view that this is gauged for. So, but really the goal of tonight is to give you a transparent look at what is happening on site. As you may have driven by, there's already a lot of progress on site with Stevens Construction. And so we wanted to give you the latest and greatest up-to-date snapshot of where we landed since going through our entitlement process. So the players for this overview include Tarantino and Company and Capri Communities. On that left side, those are one and the same. Tarantino is the developer and part of Capri Senior Communities. We, as Capri, we develop, own, and operate our senior communities. So we're your neighbor for here to stay, which again is really important for us to reach out to you as an audience and keep you informed. The other players on the team are Stevens Construction. Alyssa will be talking and introducing herself as well and telling you more about Stevens Construction. And then our architectural partner is AG Architecture, and we'll share a little bit more about them as well.
Whoops. Whoa. There we go. This is Jim.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jim Tarantino. I'm the CEO of Tarantino and Company and Capri Communities. As it indicates, we were founded in 1992. Actually, our origins go back to the 1980s, and but officially established legally in 1992. Something to note, the first development that I was involved with in the mid-1980s, we still operate on the east side of Milwaukee. Thank you for taking the time tonight to join us. And I think as Alicia mentioned, Amy mentioned that we'd much prefer to see you in person, but in today's times, this is the best we can do. So thank you for taking the time tonight to learn a little bit more about what we're doing. We are very familiar with Madison. We're excited to be a part of the Madison community. I actually have family that live within a couple miles of the site. So it's something it's familiar to at least me a little bit. And we're excited to start our construction. Just a little bit about Tarantino and Company and Capri Communities. In the senior living space, we operate 18 campuses today. Vista West will be number 19. That includes about 2,100 units, probably about 3,000 residents. We serve a mix of both. We have different independent living apartment styles, everything from the multi-story buildings to very low density 4-family and 2-family units. We have a very robust assisted living program, and our philosophy in assisted living is that our assisted living units are residential units. So they're apartments, 1- and 2-bedroom apartments. And our philosophy is we bring the care to the residents, not have the residents come to the care. That's a little bit different than you'd find with some other senior living providers. And we're very active in providing memory care support. I think right now we operate about 6 communities in southeastern Wisconsin. We're Wisconsin-based. All of our philosophy when we started the company is we wanted to be within an hour of all of our developments. So if something there is a problem, we're able to drive there and be involved. I think you'll see the principals of the company, Amy, Wayne, Alicia, Kristen, Jerry, who I'm sure you'll meet at some point in the future, are all actively involved in the business. And we've gotten to know each other quite well over the years just by all of the things we're doing. The company is continuing to grow. In this environment, we're starting a new community, which is not a common occurrence. And I think it speaks to the confidence people have in us and the level of care that we provide. You'll hear us talking a lot about our residents because they truly are central to our mission, and by extension, our employees as well. We tend to have a very active and caring group of employees, particularly caregivers, that are very passionate about what they do on a day-to-day basis. And in these times, we've tried our best to support them because they are at the front line. And as difficult as this time has been, the families have recognized them in many different ways. Let me just tell you one story. We had one of our residents celebrated her 102nd birthday. And in this environment, we could not allow her family to come and visit. And we knew she had an affinity for Elvis. So we brought an Elvis impersonator, and he was dancing around the building to all the residents that were on their balconies looking out their windows. And it's those kinds of things that make life a little bit easier in these times. In addition to that, we also are very active in the affordable housing space. Our living units, our communities are not only for those that have economic resources, but we have a mix where people who do have limited incomes have a place within our company. Something that we don't advertise much, but we're very active in, is that providing and operating housing for people with cognitive disabilities. We have a long-term relationship with St. Coletta's, for example, out of Jefferson. We've done a lot of their real estate development over the years. We operate some of their group homes and adult family homes, and that's something that we're also very active in and are proud to be a part of that. I hope that gives you a little bit of a snapshot of who we are. We think, I love the Madison community, not only people, but you have probably the best food outlets. I think I frequent a lot of them. So it's great to actually have a different reason to come to Madison. So thank you very much. And again, thank you for taking the time.
Yes, thanks.
Well, thank you, Jim. So the next slide is really just a sampling of a few images to kind of showcase what some of our buildings and what a Capri community can look like from the exterior and from the interior. As Jim had mentioned, we just finished the construction of 2 campuses in southeastern Wisconsin, the phase 1 of them. And here's some photographs of a trattoria space with a wood fire oven that residents can sort of enjoy a club room space and socialize. We've got pub spaces and taverns, pub sports bar atmospheres. And the image in the upper right is from one of our most recently completed apartments. It's the model apartment, but I think it really showcases exactly what the interior finishes will look like at our new Vista West campus. It's light and bright. There's huge windows, kitchens with modern amenities, an open concept with granite countertops, white cabinets, a clean slate for a resident to personalize it for themselves. From an exterior perspective, the lower left building is a 6-story building that's located in downtown Milwaukee that is just wrapping up on construction. And then the 2 next photos on the bottom are campuses that we own and or operate in Dane County. The center one is Highland Park, Highland Crossings in Sun Prairie, and Drumlin Reserve is located in Cottage Grove. So we're happy to be expanding even further west into Madison and be a part of that west side. So now I'd like to introduce Alyssa from Stevens Construction.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Alyssa Colden. I'm the project manager on Vista West. My responsibilities are to oversee and manage the project alongside our project superintendent, basically from prior to project start to project turnover. So I get to be with the Capri team through that entire experience. A little about Stevens. We have been in business for about 70 years, mainly in the Midwest area. We have offices in Madison, Milwaukee, and Minneapolis. Majority of what we do is multifamily living spaces, including apartments, senior living, and student housing.
There we go.
So here's a snapshot of some of the projects that you may be familiar with in the Madison area that we've done. We recently finished up the Peloton residences, which if you've been to that part of Madison, it's definitely a signature building down in that area. And a senior apartment building that we just finished in Fitchburg, actually earlier this year, is highlighted there on the right, the High Line. And then as you travel around the Middleton and Madison area, there's some other signature projects that we show some pictures of below that I'm sure many of you recognize.
Yeah, and speaking for AG Architecture, they are our architect partner that has been involved with numerous Capri projects over the course of 30 years and designed and assisted with helping us build these campuses all around southeastern Wisconsin. They are a national designer and have done over 136 campuses across the US. So Vista West is our latest one with them, and there's more in the pipeline. So that's a little snapshot on architecture. So next we'll go over the project overview and what this Vista West campus will look like. Stepping back, because again, I don't know who our audience is, particularly joining us. We have gone through, I calculated it, an 8-month public approval process with the city of Madison. And essentially over the course of that time frame, you know, it started with town hall meetings, gaining and garnering input from the local residents, plan commissioners, architectural approvals, getting to this point where we finally are now, and this is where we've landed. So the image up there is the front or face of our building, and this will face toward Gammon Road. And the next slide will show you a site plan of how it lays out on the open green space, but just some highlights. So, you know, it faces Gammon Road, and it's primarily a four-story building, and then it has popped up features closer to Gammon that are a 5-story portion of the building. The architecture is a blend between, you know, it's a residential building, but we wanted to capture a lot of that new contemporary architecture that was done at the Navitas Healthcare Center. So you'll notice a lot of the similar treatments in modern contemporary style and same finishes that were done at Navitas on the phase 1 of John Livesey's development. And we've incorporated that into our modern building. You know, this is a contemporary building for seniors, and we really wanted to capture that essence, yet we still blended it with the architectural characteristics from the residential properties behind there, the Tamarack area. So the materials are comprised of masonry and stone, a combination of horizontal lap siding like the Tamarack residence, and then some modern like wood grain panels that are those corner accents. So it was sort of a blend to create a new style for this campus. So with that, the total is 174 apartments, and that's comprised of 144 independent living apartments. What Jim Tarantino had made reference to was what we call is a floating assisted living, in which even in those independent apartments, we can deliver assisted living services on an a la carte basis to suit residents with where they are in their independence. And that happens across this entire building. There is a 1-story portion of the building, which is on the lower right, which is devoted to specialized memory care apartments and a secured setting for memory care. With that, a lot of indoor and outdoor amenities. You know, there's a concierge when you enter. There's multiple different dining options and venues and a la carte options for food. There's a state-of-the-art wellness center, a yoga studio, hair care. There's going to be a 5th floor roof deck that sort of overlooks the city and captures all of those Madison views. The backyard of this building will have a boardwalk. Actually, we took advantage of the environmental characteristics on the site because we did build it out. We were able to capture all storm water using an underground system. Bioswales wrap the perimeter of the site, and we took use of those by incorporating them into the landscape of the backyard. So there's boardwalks that wrap around the bioswales and the patios. It's really going to be beautiful, along with a very large resident garden, community garden that's in the back for resident use. So let me just see if I captured all of my notes. I think I did. So, and then here's a look at the site plan. So to orient you, north is actually pointed to the right. So it's at the right of our screen. Tree Lane is sort of curving around that right side of the slide, which is north. At the bottom of the slide, by that white strip, that would be Gammon Road. And then further off to the left side of the slide would be Mineral Point, you know, past Navitas and further down south. So we've got those commercial and retail establishments that sort of anchor Gammon Road that are just kind of, again, off of this site where there's some parking lots. But the first step is creating a brand new road that's going to give us access to our senior site. So the road has officially been named Bella Vista Drive. It's going to be a road that connects from Tree Lane, which is the access to our property, and then continues further south and eventually hooks up with Mineral Point. There will be parallel parking along this roadway. It is a private road, but it will be constructed to public road standards. And then from our building, you can really see it undulate on the site to sort of break up what would be a larger mass. But I've indicated where there are 5-story portions to the site, which again is closer to Bella Vista. And then we've got some 4-story portions as you head toward the Tamarack properties. We'll have a circular entrance drive for visitors to come and drop off loved ones or visit the site. And then we will all have, the entire structure will have underground parking. It's accessed from 2 different vantage points. There's access at the north to the underground parking and access at the far south to get to the underground parking. We also have some property parking for the memory care environment, for the service drive, and other staff supported spaces. The back of the building, which is toward the upper portions of the slide near those residential properties, will have a number of landscape patios. This isn't the landscape plan, but I had mentioned there's going to be a community garden for residents to participate in, outdoor kitchen space and such, along with a series of retaining walls that it's sort of that gray curving mass along the tree line. I wanted to point out, because of where we're at in construction, Stevens has already grubbed or removed a lot of the trees and shrubs on the site. Everything that has been removed is the completion of the landscape demolition. So at this point, the remainder of trees on site will be preserved toward the end of construction, which we'll get into the schedule. That will be then enhanced and incorporated with additional landscaping to finish off the site. So that's it for the site slide. And then we're going to go into project schedule, which starts with that same project slide, but talking from a construction aspect. Alyssa.
All right, so looking again at the building, but kind of outlining some of our construction features that we have. The red outline around the entire building is our 6-foot construction fence, which is currently in place out there. This has screening on it around the entire perimeter. There may be a small area that will be screened shortly adjacent to the businesses at this point. There are 2 construction access points that we're using. So we are utilizing a construction access point off Tree Lane, and then also further south off of the parking lots that are back behind the businesses there. So as we get further on, we're going to reference the north and south buildings. So keeping in the orientation that the right side of the page is the north area, and the left side of your page is the south area. On the north side, we do have a construction trailer set up there. It has a Stevens logo on it. We always have during business hours are superintendent on site, and that's where he resides. It's his main vantage point to look at everything. And next to it is a man door access to our job site. All of our contractors parking are currently parking along Tree Lane. And then there is some parking stalls on the far back row of some of the Livesey parking spaces that we may eventually cone off. One, for some utility work that'll happen there. And then as we start to get more contractors, some extra parking spaces for them.
So the schedule, I wanted to step back before we get into the construction details. I had mentioned it earlier. When I looked back to find out where we started and where we've come from, I think it begins with saying, you know, our public approvals and this project started way back in December of 2018. Flash forward to 2020, we gained all of our public approvals by July in 2019. I know we had a lot of participation from the Tamarack neighborhood, and we thank you all for that if you're listening. Alderman Skidmore was a supporter of that. And so it was really a collaborative process, and we're happy to be here now breaking ground, in which Alyssa's gonna describe where we are from that aspect.
Yeah, so the beginning of this month, we got some shovels in the ground, and we finally broke ground out there, which is really exciting for everybody. So if you've been past the site, you can see the equipment that's been through the site, and that we're starting concrete on the north half of the building. So some key milestones that I'll kind of walk through what you might see over the next 15 months as we're coming out of the ground and putting this beautiful building in place for Capri. Towards the end of this year, as we get into fall, the concrete on that north half of the building will be complete, and we'll start to go vertical with our framing. Once we're done on the north half with concrete, we flip to the south half. So in winter of 2020, we will be finishing up the concrete on the south half and starting to go vertical there. As we continue, winter of 2020, we'll be topping out on that north half. So you'll see the 5 stories coming out of the ground with our wood framing. And we'll be starting the exterior skin of that north half once we're topped out. And then as that area becomes watertight, we begin the MEP rough-ins for that north half of the building. Like I said, we'll also be going vertical on the south half, so we'll be down at second floor roughly by that time, and we'll be starting to climb up for topping out the south side in the spring of 2021. By that point, we'll kind of have multiple things happen in the 2 different buildings. On the north half, we'll be looking to start interior finishes, so we'll start to get a lot of those interior trades, the drywallers, the painters, flooring guys, all of those interior trades. And then we'll top out the framing on that south half. As we move through this time, we'll continue the exterior skin around the building. So we'll be starting on the north half, continuing to wrap, and as the south half reaches its full height, we'll continue around that way. The exterior skin will go through into the summer of 2021. Towards the end of the summer, we'll be looking to put all the landscaping back in as we finish that exterior skin, and we'll also be paving the new Bella Vista Drive. So next summer, it'll really start to look like a building on the outside for us to get out of there in construction. And then on the interior, we'll be continuing to work on the interior finishes. And then by fall of 2021, that's when we should be fully construction complete, and Capri will be looking to move residents in. Some big items that you guys might be seeing is we will eventually mobilize a crane as we start to frame that north building. So towards the end of this year, we'll be putting a crane in place, and then that will move to the south of the building, and then we will demobilize that crane once the south building is topped out. So that's about the spring time frame. And then after that, there'll be a series of lifts, man lifts, forklifts, things like that, that go around the exterior of the building for us to be able to finish up our exterior skin and to get all of the materials that we need into the building.
All right. So that is the kind of the meat of our presentation tonight, our one-way presentation. It doesn't feel very neighborhoody that we can't talk with you. But for future updates, if you have not already done this, email info@capricommunities.com and just put in the subject line Vista West, and you will be included in all future construction updates, community neighborhood updates, etc. And include both your email and your mailing address. Sometimes we send things print mail, sometimes we send things through email. We are hoping for a groundbreaking, a more kind of formalized, memorialized groundbreaking in late July. And the reason that we sound so kind of wishy-washy about it is it's really all kind of predicated on DHS and CDC guidance. And so we are working through that protocol right now to understand, what we can and can't do, from inviting the public and the neighbors, which we would traditionally do in a groundbreaking, to possibly having to do something smaller at this point, given the status of the pandemic. One thing that we try to do with all of our projects is early on find mutually beneficial partnerships. The St. Rita Square project that Amy talked about earlier, we forged a partnership with their 7th grade students over a 2-year period. So they just graduated 8th grade this year. And we engaged them in hands-on STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math activities throughout the course of the project. We were able to bring them onto the project site, give them real world it was sort of like a real life laboratory for them to understand what an architect, an engineer, a healthcare provider, a mechanical engineer, et cetera, do. So those are the sorts of things that we look for. So if you have any ideas on that, again, please send those to us. We do intend to talk with Madison Memorial High School as they get back up in gear right now. I've reached out to them actually already, but I think they're focusing just on how are we getting students back to school in the fall, which is certainly understandable. And then last but not least, we will have a recording of tonight, provided all of our technology worked as it should, available at capricommunities.com by the end of this week. So that concludes our presentation. I feel like I know the Steinbach-Finette family because you've been so communicative to us, asking some questions, dealing with some technology. So you're probably huddled over this looking on your phone together. But thank you for the kudos on the STEM partnership. And then the other question that they asked, which Alyssa is probably for you, is kind of what is a typical day going to look like in terms of when the project site shuts down? They've noticed that it's gone a little past 5 this week.
Yeah, so we are not starting before 7 o'clock in the morning, as you've noted. We typically try to be done by 5, but definitely no later than 6, which is the requirements of the City of Madison. Usually if we are staying past 5, it's to wrap up, some odds and ends that didn't quite get caught up. Why you've probably noticed it the last few days is the weather hasn't been our friend. So I know yesterday we got a little bit of a downpour that wasn't anticipated. The same thing happened on Monday. So the guys are just trying to get everything picked up and make sure that it's all locked up. And that's why it's a little bit past 5. But typically the construction guys don't want to work much past then anyway. So I hope that answers your question.
He or she said it did. So
okay. I missed that.
We can't wait to meet you in person. So again, any questions, email them here. If you think you may not be on the mailing list, again, email them here. And for so many reasons, we hope to meet you in person, and that'll mean that it's a safe time and that perhaps some of the height of the pandemic is behind us. And so for that very reason, we could not even begin to predict when that may be, but we are eternally optimistic that it's sooner rather than later. And with that, Amy, do you have anything that you'd like to say in closing? Otherwise, we will sign off for our very first virtual neighborhood meeting.
I don't have anything to add other than thank you for participating tonight. And, as Alicia mentioned, I do urge you to sign up for those e-blasts. I think they typically happen about once a month, unless there is an event that's outside of that 1 month cycle, like a groundbreaking, if we are able to host that in some way. But they'll just provide updates on schedule and if we're holding to that, and just other Capri news regarding Vista West. So thank you for your participation.
Thank you all. Good night.
Good night.